This is very serious. Jesus is begging for you, only you. Important alert, very bad news for you on July 4th. If you leave this, you will be cry so much. Open it quickly. My beloved child, listen deeply, for it is in this moment that may appear quiet and still. There is a stillness in the heavens that doesn't come often, a kind of holy silence that only happens when Jesus himself leans closer, when he stops everything else just to whisper your name. And right now, that silence is here, not for the world, but for you. Yes, you. Not your family, not your friends, not even the people you've prayed for. You. Because something is being opened in the Spirit, and it has your name carved in light. It has waited long enough. And now, as the date draws close, July 4th is no longer just a day on the calendar. It is a moment of divine unveiling, where the truth that has been buried beneath years of confusion, distractions, fear, and emotional fatigue finally begins to rise. Jesus isn't calling to warn you, he's calling to rescue you. From the voices in your head. From the patterns that keep repeating. From the weight that never belonged to you in the first place. He is calling with urgency, but not fear, with love, but not delay. And this time, he is not sending an angel. He is coming himself. Because you are that important to him. You may not feel ready. You may be tired. You may be broken in places no one sees. But Jesus is not waiting for you to be perfect, he is asking you to be present. Because this revelation, this message, this opening, it isn't about performance. It's about alignment. He wants to align you with who you really are beneath the hurt. Beneath the pretending. Beneath the smiling while dying inside mask you've worn for too long. On July 4th, a veil will be lifted. A voice from heaven will reach your heart in a way it never has before. It may come through a dream. A person. A sound. A sudden moment of deep emotion. You'll know it when it happens, because your soul will freeze, your chest will tighten, and your spirit will whisper, "This is it." The truth you were born to remember will begin speaking, not in words, but in waves. And all the times you cried with no answer, will make sense in one divine breath. You are not being asked to figure it all out. You are being asked to open your heart. Jesus is not disappointed in you. He is not angry at you. He's not shaking his head in shame. He's weeping with you. Every time you felt invisible. Every time you prayed and nothing changed. Every time you gave your all and still got left behind. He has never stopped watching you. Never stopped loving you. Never stopped planning this moment where everything would come full circle, when the pain would start making sense, when the silence would turn to sound, when the heaviness would begin to lift not through effort, but through divine love. So don't ignore this. Not because you'll miss a reward, but because you'll miss the reminder of who you are. The reminder that you are not lost. You are not forgotten. You are not behind. You are on the exact step where heaven has been waiting to meet you. And on July 4th, what has been hidden, both from others and from yourself, will finally begin to unfold. Not with loudness, not with panic, but with sacred clarity. And when it does, Jesus wants your heart to be open enough to recognize the touch. This is not just a message. This is a divine appointment. And you are the only one invited. He waits, not outside you, but within. And as the days move slowly toward that sacred date, July 4th, you begin to notice a stirring. A restlessness not in your body, but in your soul. It's subtle. Like a voice that's been silent for years suddenly humming beneath your ribs. It doesn't shout. It doesn't beg. It just waits, for your spirit to finally stop surviving long enough to remember. And when it does, when you finally sit in the quiet, when the phone is away, when the world's noise fades, something old and holy begins to surface. It's not a thought. It's not a memory. It's you. The version of you that existed before heartbreak, before betrayal, before fear turned your softness into armor. That childlike spirit. That fearless wonder. That pure, unshaken belief that you were born for something beautiful. That's what Jesus is calling forth now. Not your accomplishments. Not your efforts. But your essence. You see, before the world told you who you had to be, God already knew who you were. And He placed that knowing inside your soul like a hidden treasure. A voice. A spark. A secret that could only be unlocked at the right time. And now, as Jesus kneels beside your life with divine patience, that time has come. He speaks softly, almost like a song. You are still the one I chose. You are still the one I love. You are still the one I call. The world may have changed how you see yourself. But heaven has never stopped seeing the original you, the one who still dances beneath the surface, even when your face forgets how to smile. And Jesus doesn't come to shame you for forgetting. He comes to remind you. To hold you while you slowly remember. To whisper light into the cracks where darkness had taken root. He knows you've been tired. He knows your prayers have turned into sighs. He knows you've smiled in public and cried in silence. And He honors every silent battle you fought just to keep your heart open. That's why this moment is sacred. That's why July 4th matters. Because it's not about fireworks or time passing. It's about the divine spark inside you catching flame again. It's about your soul realigning with who it always was beneath the layers of trying to survive. Jesus leans closer. His hands are open. His voice like warm water pouring over an aching soul. You don't have to prove anything. You don't have to strive anymore. Just come back to me, and I will show you the parts of yourself that never left. And in that moment, your spirit weeps, not from pain, but from recognition. From realizing that no matter how far you've wandered, how much you've forgotten, how dim the light became inside you, you were never unloved. Never unworthy. Never too late. The truth is, God has been waiting, not to scold, but to restore. And now, through this sacred invitation, the process has begun. So close your eyes. Breathe. Return to that inner altar. The one you abandoned. The one no one saw. Because Jesus is there. Not above you. Not beyond you. But within you. Calling not just for your attention, but for your reunion. This is the beginning of your return. There is a room in heaven where names are written. Not in ink. Not in paper. But in light. Each soul carries a specific glow, a divine frequency, and yours has always been different. Not louder, not brighter, just deeper. More eternal. More marked by something sacred. Even the angels know it. They've spoken your name in wonder when you weren't listening. They've watched you walk through storms with no one to hold your hand and still not lose your capacity to love. And Jesus, He wrote something beside your name that no one else could see. A truth that wasn't meant to be revealed until you had walked through the places that would shape your spirit to understand it. And now, finally, you're ready. Not because you're strong. Not because you're perfect. But because your heart has been broken enough to receive truth without pride. Jesus gently places that truth in front of your soul. It's not loud. It doesn't shout. It doesn't even feel like a surprise. It feels like a memory, like something you always knew but forgot. And this is what it says: you were chosen to carry healing. Not as a preacher. Not as a performer. Not as someone who needs a stage. But simply as someone who walks through the world like a living balm. Someone whose voice makes others breathe easier. Someone whose silence carries peace. Someone whose pain turned into empathy so deep, it became medicine. Your gift is not loud, it's sacred. It was buried beneath years of rejection and misunderstanding. But now, it's rising. And it's not just rising for you, it's rising through you. You begin to realize that every delay, every detour, every tear-soaked night was preparing your vessel. Not to impress people, but to hold something holy. And now that Jesus has shown you the truth, He asks only one thing: will you allow yourself to believe it? Will you stop seeing yourself as the one who was passed over, and start seeing yourself as the one who was preserved? Will you stop hiding behind old narratives and step fully into this new one, where you are not just healed, you are healing? Where you are not just found, you are sent. Because on July 4th, something will be unlocked. Not outside you, but in you. A clarity that floods your system. A calm that wraps around you like warm wind. A realization that you were never waiting on a miracle. You were becoming one. You were being carved, prepared, and softened until you could finally carry this truth without fear or ego. And now, as Jesus watches you absorb what has been revealed, he smiles, not because the journey is over, but because the next chapter is about to begin. And in that chapter, you no longer doubt who you are. You remember. And now, the day arrives. Not just on the calendar,
July
but
4th
in your soul.
is
Not just a date anymore, it becomes a doorway. And as the morning light touches the edge of your window, something feels different. The air is softer. The silence feels alive. Your heart beats not with anxiety, but with recognition. As if your spirit knew this was the moment heaven had marked before you were even born. And while the world moves normally, phones buzzing, cars rushing, people distracted, you can feel it. That subtle trembling inside your chest. That still, holy voice that whispers, "This is the moment I've been preparing you for." Jesus is close. Closer than sound. Closer than breath. Closer than thought. He's not standing in the sky, he's standing inside your atmosphere. You don't see him with your eyes. But you know. You know it's him in the way your tears fall without sadness. You know it's him in the way your memories start to line up like puzzle pieces, and every confusing chapter begins to glow with purpose. You know it's him in the way your whole body feels covered, not with pressure, but with a blanket of calm so pure it humbles you to stillness. And then, it happens. You hear it, not in your ears, but in your spirit. A voice that says only your name. No instruction. No command. Just the sound of your name being spoken by the one who created it. And in that single whisper, every part of you that had been stretched thin by life finally returns home. Jesus doesn't come to overwhelm you. He comes to walk with you through this revelation. He shows you visions, not of the future, but of your past, moments when you felt alone, but weren't. Moments you cried in silence, and he was sitting right there beside you. He brings back the image of when you almost gave up, and how heaven held its breath until you rose again. He reminds you of that one night when you asked, "God, do you even see me?" And how he marked this very day as his answer. "I've always seen you," his voice says, even when you couldn't see yourself. And now, he holds something in his hand. Not gold. Not gifts. But light. A pure, living light, shaped like your name. He places it in your chest. Not to burden you, but to remind you. This is who you are. Not what people said. Not what you lost. Not what they did to you. This glowing, breath-given essence, this is your identity. And as it settles inside your spirit, you feel restored. Not just in emotion, but in purpose. You begin to see yourself clearly. Not through pain. Not through shame. But through truth. You are not broken. You are not behind. You are not forgotten. You are beloved. You are known. You are seen by the King of all creation, and He chose you for this moment. And as Jesus steps back, His eyes still on you, He doesn't leave with a warning. He leaves with a smile. Because He knows, you won't forget this again. You have finally seen what heaven always knew, that you were never waiting for Him. You were returning to Him. You step back into the world, but you're not the same. Everything around you looks familiar, the walls, the people, the noise, the responsibilities, but something inside you has changed permanently. There is a stillness now, a kind of holy rhythm beating behind your bones. Not loud, not proud, just peaceful. Just steady. You carry a quiet glow. Not the kind that seeks attention, but the kind that makes others pause when they're near you, wondering why your silence feels like safety, why your smile feels like a doorway to something deeper. And it's because you've seen Him. You've stood in the presence of truth. And now, you carry Him within. The Jesus you met in stillness, the one who whispered your name on July 4th, He never left. He just moved deeper into your essence. You don't need to speak it. You don't need to explain it. You don't even need to prove anything. Because your very presence now carries the fragrance of encounter. You have become a living altar, a walking prayer, and without trying, you begin to affect the atmosphere around you. People begin to notice. Not your clothes. Not your status. But your peace. That rare, soft confidence that says, I know who walks with me now. And in a world full of noise, your quiet becomes magnetic. Not everyone understands you. Some pull away, confused by your calm. Others are drawn in, warmed by your depth. And through it all, you stay grounded, not in ego, but in grace. Jesus is still near. You feel Him in the pauses. In the moments you breathe before reacting. In the way you now listen more than you speak. In the way your heart stays open, even when misunderstood. He moves with you, not as a visitor, but as a resident of your spirit. And now you understand why the waiting took so long. Why the pain had to go so deep. It was never just about healing you. It was about building the kind of soul that could carry heaven's weight with tenderness. You were never just being rescued. You were being refined. And now, wherever you walk, the shift follows. Doors open not because you force them, but because your presence carries the yes of God. Conversations change because your words are now laced with eternity. People find rest near you because you found rest within. You are not performing. You are not preaching. You are simply being. Being the one who answered the call. Being the one who stayed through the night. Being the one who opened the message when heaven whispered, "Now." And Jesus? He smiles from the depths of your being. Because he knows the truth is no longer just something you heard. It is something you live. And now, you are the message. The moment. The miracle. Heaven does not send invitations without purpose. When Jesus calls you, it's not to flatter you, it's to reveal you. And now that you've seen, received, and walked in what was shown to your soul on July 4th, a final moment unfolds. A holy silence begins to settle, but it is not empty. It is full, full of light, full of witness, full of the presence of God Himself preparing to declare who you've become. You are not the same. You are not standing where you used to stand. You are no longer just surviving life, you are now holding the keys to something sacred. Heaven has watched your surrender, your stillness, your transformation. And now, in a realm beyond this earth, your name begins to shine on the scrolls that only angels read. Not just the name you were given at birth, but the name that God had kept hidden in glory until now. You hear it, not in your ears, but in your blood, in your soul, in the deep center of your being. A divine echo, beloved. Healer. Light-bearer. Voice of peace. Mirror of me. These are not just titles. They are identities. And they do not come from effort, they come from intimacy. You did not earn this moment. You aligned with it. You allowed yourself to be emptied. You allowed the silence to shape you. You allowed your old self to fall apart in His hands so that something eternal could be reborn in its place. That's why Jesus called you only you. Because this assignment wasn't general. It was carved into the story of your life before your first heartbeat. That's why it hurt the way it did. That's why the process took years. You weren't being punished, you were being prepared. And now, as heaven watches, a crown of purpose is placed above your spirit. Not to lift you in pride, but to lift you into remembrance. You were always meant to carry this. And Jesus stands before you one final time, not as a distant figure, not as a dream, but as your companion. The one who waited through your silence. The one who held your hand through every fall. The one who stood unseen beside your pillow when your heart broke silently into the night. And now He looks at you with no judgment. No pressure. Only with eyes full of radiant completion. Because He knows, you finally see what He has always seen. You finally believe that your softness is strength. That your tears were oil. That your breaking was birthing. That your waiting was worship. That your journey was divine timing. And now, nothing about you is ordinary. As he touches your shoulder, something ignites in your chest, a warmth, a glow, a holy knowing. And you hear him whisper once more, "Go now, not to prove yourself, but to become the living reminder that I still speak, that I still call, and that I still anoint." You nod, not with fear, but with sacred peace. Because you are ready. You are not walking back into the world. You are walking forward into your assignment. And every step you take now will echo beyond time. Because once Jesus calls your name, and you answer, nothing is ever the same again.